Mike Milbury brought to you this week by Shaw's and Star Market, perfecting the art of fresh. By findmassmoney.gov, by Timeout Market, Boston's best eating and drinking destination in the Fenway, all under one roof, timeoutmarket.com. And by John Sewer, the name to know when your drains don't flow. And he joins us this week on the Harbor One Hotline. Hey, Mike.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm was riveted to the conversation about Courtney cleaning up.
Yeah.
And you have no excuse, Greg. You know, you and Curtis, it's just lazy, slovenly, unhealthy, and selfish. So I mean, there's no question about it. There's no reason why you should just let things go to pot.
See, I look at you and I feel like you're a messy guy. Maybe
No. If I walk into the house and I see a little crumb on the floor, I stop down and I pick it up and make sure it goes away.
You're retired. You have nothing else to do.
Oh, come on. I sit and wait to talk to you every week.
Have you, by the way, watched, are you into Dynasty or not into Dynasty?
I've watched half of it, but I was actually got the flu. It was nasty for about 2 or 3 weeks. It was really exhausted and just kind of sitting on the couch and nodding in and out. But, you know, I'm back to being my obnoxious self now. I'm okay.
Good. What did you think of it so far?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was, you know, listen, I don't know why I understand why. It was such a great run with Belichick and Brady and all the various casts of characters. And I think it's very hard to measure who was the more important. I think obviously you go to the guy that's on the field. I mean, that's where the issues are settled by and large. Yeah. But in a game like football, the planning and and because it's such a stop and go game, you make a play, then you stop, you huddle, you regroup, and sometimes you don't do that, but you've practiced that 2-minute drill thing. But there's no reason to ever be bashing Bill Belichick with 6 championships. Right. I just don't know how you do it. What's the point? And to be honest with you, once the Crafts hired Bill Belichick and gave him the money, that was the only thing they were responsible for. Don't give them all this credit for all the stuff they did. They didn't design any plays. They didn't make any trade deals on their own. I mean, they opened the wallet after they hired Bill, and Brady was allowed to do his thing, and they won championships. But I mean, to start giving ownership tons of credit for what a new stadium, fine, give them credit for that. Better hot dogs, fine, but don't tell me they made a big difference in the wins and losses. It just doesn't compute to me.
Well, speaking of bashing, we have at times this season been on this team for blowing leads late in games, and they did it again the other night, lost in overtime. Where are you this moment on that troubling issue? Yeah,
well, it's troubling, but I wanted to take a quick second just to sort of take a look back. Like last year we started with low expectations. Remember the start of the season, everybody was hurt, and even though Krejci was back and a few additions, modest expectations, and then they blew the doors off the regular season. And Don Sweeney goes out and get these 3 additions, and we're all excited thinking Stanley Cup, and they just laid a fart in the playoffs, right? I mean, it was tough. And the same thing happened this year. We had modest expectations without Krejci and Bergeron, and they come out and play brilliantly. But since the All-Star game, they've leveled. And then I scratch my head and I look at the standings. They're still second overall in the National Hockey League, second place overall. But my eyes, I don't think are deceiving me. They're not physical enough. They're not tight enough defensively. Too many leakages. You saw that against Edmonton in the late stages, and the leads are. It means that they're, it's symptomatic of their defensive play, and it's symptomatic of the centers that they have playing in those situations. They don't have enough quality centermen that know what to do. And centerman's such an important position. We've mentioned it before. Got to play at the offensive end, but just as importantly, maybe more importantly, a cog in the middle in the defensive zone. And we've seen the special teams be erratic, both power play and penalty kill lately, inconsistent offensively. So even though they're second in the league, it strikes me that he's got a decision to make, Don Sweeney. Now, Does he try to make a push with this team and do something without many assets to do it? No draft picks. Going to have to trade some. No, he doesn't have really much in the stable in Providence. But does he try to pump it up to go for a Stanley Cup run? That's one option. Second option is to investigate trades for players that are going to improve yourself in the future and maybe jeopardize this current roster, guys like Ullmark and DeBrusque. And the third thing is he can just sit back. Just say, listen, I'm gonna maybe try to add something here or there for a low cost, and then let the goaltenders try to save our bacon, and we'll win our way defensively to a Stanley Cup, which I don't see happening given the way they've played lately. That's where I am.
They are mentioned, when it comes to trade rumors, whether it's guys like Zucker or Lindholm, they do come up in the conversation. What would you do if you were Don Sweeney?
I would choose option 2, which is to, I still don't think they can keep Ullmark and Swayman, not just because of money, but because I think these guys want to be a number one goaltender. I think they want to be. I don't care about the goalie hugs. I think they still probably, I got to hug this son of a bitch, but I want the next start. I want to be the guy that goes. I think I saw Tuukka Rask with some comments about you got to go with a hot hand. And I think that's the way to go. I think you need a second goaltender, but I don't think you need to overwhelm yourself with goaltending depth. Although now that I've said that may be the way they win this particular year. But I think eventually meaning by the middle of the summer, you're going to see one of these guys gone, and I think it'll be Ullmark. And you got to decide on DeBrusque.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's going to want. You're not going to. Are you going to want to pay him?
No,
the 6.5 or maybe 7 that he clearly wants. So if you're not going to pay that, and you're probably not, get rid of him now.
I wouldn't get rid of him, but you don't want to let him walk at the end of the season.
You'll get value for him.
I don't know, and nor do you, but I think you will have some interest out there, and that's what neither of one of us knows. We just don't know what's conversation is being had about DeBrusque. But yeah, he's shown some interest. He didn't do himself any favors or the Bruins any favors for going like 14 games with 2 or 3 points. It was he's consistently inconsistent.
You bring up the defense, but when you're talking about coming towards the deadline, Edmondson is a guy that Don Sweeney seems to be zeroing in on. Do you think that he could do enough to get these guys in line? He's a good player. He fits the bill. I don't know what the asking price is, but is he a game breaker? No, he's a kind of physical, stay-at-home defenseman, and you call him a 5-6 defenseman. That's about it. That's not an overwhelming upgrade, but it's an upgrade, and it's going to make people happy because he might hit somebody.
Mike, Jim Montgomery talked about after the Edmonton game. They asked him about what he felt like might be the issue with his team when it comes to blowing leads or having problems at the end of games. And he said it wasn't physical. It was a mental thing. When you have a mental thing as a head coach of any sport or any team, what does that really mean for you as a coach when you're saying your team mentally falls apart at the end of games?
That means you better take a look in the mirror. And you got to know that you're responsible for the discipline that goes with playing defense in the closing minutes. I mean, there are ways to approach it when it's 6-on-5 and different ways to approach it, but you have to insist on one particular way. And, the scrambles that occur in the zone, it looks like there are a lot of guys that are sort of befuddled, in these late stages. Where do I go? What do I do? And they're not acting, in a sort of automatic rote fashion, which is where you should be. You should know exactly where you should be on the ice when it's a 6-on-5 in the last minute of the game. You should know your role, and you should know that you're going to have to be physical around the front of the cage. That he can't probably inject into his team, but he can give them positional strength, and I don't see that with his team. And that's a head game, and it's a game that I think he's got more control of than he's exerting right now.
Well, the NHL trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 p.m. And when and if the Bruins do something, you could talk about it immediately right here on Boston Sports Original, WEEI. And I was going to say messy Mike Milbury, but clearly it's not messy. Very clean Mike Milbury.
Yes, I am.
Not necessarily clean as a hockey player, but certainly clean in life.
Oh yeah, don't look at my mind and find cleanliness.
We got to get Mike
is.
to sign my petition to get Connor McDavid to the East Coast. Get him out of there because
Yeah.
we're missing out on greatness.
Oh my God, is he fun to
doesn't-
watch or
but
what?
Greg doesn't think he's great. Greg says that unless he wins a Stanley Cup, we can't put him in the great category.
Well, I disagree with that, but I do think he's going to win a Stanley Cup, and Edmonton has added a couple of players that are going to help them. I don't know if they're ready to do it, but he's in the prime of his hockey life in the next 3 or 4 years. Every time I see him on one of these channels that I can get and don't have to pay for, I'm going to look it up.
He's so
All
fun.
right, Mike, thanks. We'll talk to you next week.